Beloved, there are seasons in life when the wise must retreat, not out of fear, but out of faith in the God who calls them to peace. There are moments when stepping away from the tyrannical grasp of a narcissist becomes not only necessary but sanctified. Disappearing from such a person is not an act of cruelty but an act of wisdom and obedience to the one who bids us to cast off every weight that entangles. When you withdraw, the truth of their character comes into the light, no longer obscured by your presence. When you remove yourself from the orbit of a narcissist, the veil that once masked their true nature begins to lift. The narcissist thrives on the attention, admiration, and control they command over others, weaving a tapestry of charm, false humility, and perceived strength to maintain their influence. Yet, when you disappear, the facade that they so carefully maintain begins to show its fractures. They are unmasked as individuals driven not by inner confidence but by a desperate need for external validation. The absence of someone who once supplied their ego reveals the extent of their dependence, laying bare their inherent fragility. The narcissist's true nature is rooted in their inability to stand firm without a steady supply of admiration. Disappearing from their sphere denies them this sustenance, forcing them to confront the emptiness within. Their confidence, once so imposing, is seen for what it is, a brittle shell that cracks under the weight of self-reflection. This moment reveals that their identity is built upon shifting sands, dependent on the validation of others rather than rooted in genuine self-assurance. In this absence, the narcissist's grandeur diminishes, and the person they truly are becomes painfully evident. Without someone to mirror their projected image, the narcissist is forced to face the uncomfortable reality of their inner self. They have spent much of their existence constructing an identity that depends on how others perceive them. When you step away, you remove the mirror in which they see themselves reflected. The lack of external validation leaves them exposed, unable to maintain the illusion of perfection they so desperately seek to uphold. The emptiness within them, long masked by their manipulations, becomes glaringly apparent to those who are no longer ensnared by their charm. Disappearing also reveals the depth of the narcissist's insecurity. While they may exude confidence and authority, their need for control stems from an underlying fear of rejection and inadequacy. The moment you remove yourself from their reach, their veneer of invulnerability begins to crumble. The strength they once projected is exposed as an illusion, one designed to compensate for their internal sense of inferiority. This revelation is often shocking to those who once believed in their outward image of dominance and self-possession. The narcissist's response to your absence also unveils their dependence on manipulation as a tool for control. Their immediate reaction is often not one of introspection or humility but of anger or desperation, as they seek to regain the power they feel slipping away. The facade of calm and control they project is replaced by behaviors that reveal their true nature, attempts to guilt, intimidate, or lure you back into their sphere. These tactics expose the underlying instability of their character, highlighting their inability to function without dominance over others. In their desperation, the narcissist's lack of emotional maturity becomes evident. Instead of processing the loss with introspection or growth, they lash out or attempt to reassert their influence. This immaturity manifests in their inability to take responsibility for their actions or recognize the harm they have caused. Your absence forces them to confront their own failings, yet their response often reveals their unwillingness or inability to change. This further unveils the hollowness of their character and the depth of their emotional brokenness. The vulnerability of the narcissist is most clearly seen when they are left alone. In solitude, they can no longer rely on the adoration or submission of others to mask their flaws. This isolation reveals the extent to which their identity is constructed around external affirmation rather than intrinsic worth. While they may present themselves as independent and self-reliant, their reliance on others to prop up their self-esteem becomes undeniably clear when you remove yourself from their influence. As the narcissist's nature is revealed, it becomes evident that their control was always an illusion. They depended on your presence to maintain their sense of power, and your disappearance shatters the balance they worked so hard to sustain. This exposure demonstrates that their confidence and control were never genuine but were instead fragile constructs designed to mask their inner void. In their desperation to maintain influence, they may double down on manipulation, but their vulnerability has already been exposed. Ultimately, stepping away from the narcissist's orbit is not just an act of self-liberation, but a mirror that reflects their true self back to them. The person who seems so dominant and confident is revealed to be deeply insecure, manipulative, and fragile. The mask they wear to charm and control others is stripped away, leaving behind an individual who is far from the image they worked so hard to project. This unveiling is a powerful reminder of the freedom that comes with stepping out of their shadow and choosing to live in the light of truth. When you disappear from the grasp of a narcissist, the very core of their control is shaken. A narcissist thrives on their ability to dominate relationships, manipulating emotions and circumstances to maintain their position of superiority. This control feeds their ego and reassures them of their power. Your absence, however, disrupts this carefully curated dynamic, creating a void they cannot easily fill. Their loss of control exposes the fragility of their authority and reveals the reliance they have on others to sustain their facade. It is a disruption that not only unsettles them, but also begins to unravel the very structure of their dominance. The narcissist builds their control on a foundation of dependence. They craft situations where those around them feel obligated to cater to their needs or fulfill their desires. This dependence is not mutual. It is a one-sided dynamic where the narcissist benefits while others sacrifice. When you remove yourself, the narcissist loses a key pillar of their control. This loss forces them to grapple with the reality that their dominance was not as absolute as they believed. The carefully woven web of manipulation starts to fray, leaving them exposed and uncertain. Your disappearance removes the narcissist's ability to direct the narrative. They often thrive on shaping how others perceive them and the situation at hand. By stepping away, you take away their platform to spin stories or manipulate perspectives. Without you present, they lose the ability to influence your thoughts and emotions directly. This disruption strips them of a vital tool in their arsenal, leaving them to face a reality they cannot bend to their will. It is in this silence that their control begins to crumble. The absence of control is particularly unsettling for a narcissist because it challenges their sense of superiority. Control is central to their identity. They equate dominance with worth. Losing the ability to dictate your actions or emotions is not just a blow to their ego, but also a direct attack on their self-perception. They experience a profound sense of insecurity as they realize that their power over you was not as strong as they had assumed. This disruption forces them to confront their vulnerability, an experience they are ill-equipped to handle. When control is disrupted, the narcissist often resorts to frantic measures to regain it. This reaction further reveals the depth of their dependence on control for their emotional stability. They may attempt to draw you back with manipulative tactics, appeals to pity, guilt, or even anger. These efforts, however, often highlight their desperation rather than restoring their dominance. The more they strive to reassert control, the more their vulnerability becomes evident. This cycle of desperation underscores the precariousness of their position. The disruption of control also exposes the narcissist's inability to adapt to situations beyond their influence. Their entire modus operandi relies on maintaining the upper hand, often through manipulation and coercion. Without this control, they struggle to function effectively. Their lack of adaptability becomes clear as they fail to navigate the dynamics of a relationship or situation where their usual tactics no longer work. This revelation lays bare their emotional immaturity and dependence on others for their sense of self. When a narcissist loses control, their reactions often reveal the depth of their inner turmoil. Outwardly, they may lash out, resorting to anger or blame to mask their feelings of inadequacy. Inwardly, however, they experience a profound sense of loss and confusion. The disruption of their control creates a vacuum they are desperate to fill, yet their inability to do so leaves them floundering. This internal conflict further destabilizes their carefully constructed persona, making it increasingly difficult for them to maintain the appearance of strength. The ripple effect of your absence extends beyond the narcissist to their relationships with others. Their need for control often affects not just one person but an entire network of individuals. When you remove yourself, it creates a shift in this dynamic. Others may begin to see the cracks in the narcissist's facade, questioning the power they once wielded. This chain reaction further undermines their control, leaving them increasingly isolated. It is a disruption that reverberates through their sphere of influence, challenging the stability of their dominance. When you step away from the narcissist's sphere, their carefully constructed image begins to unravel, exposing their profound inner fragility. They work tirelessly to project an aura of strength, confidence, and superiority, but this is often a facade designed to conceal the deep insecurities that lie within. The narcissist's outward demeanor is a mask held in place to protect their vulnerable core. Your absence disrupts this projection, and in that disruption, the cracks in their seemingly invincible persona become increasingly evident. What appeared unshakable is revealed to be fragile, built on the unstable foundation of external validation and control. What becomes unmistakable is the extent to which the narcissist's identity is dependent on external factors. Their sense of worth is not self-generated but is instead derived from the relationships they dominate. When one of these relationships is removed, their identity begins to crumble. This dependency is a sign of deep insecurity, a reality they work tirelessly to hide. The exposure of this dependency challenges the narrative they have constructed about their own invincibility, revealing a person who is far more vulnerable than they wish to appear. As their fragility becomes more apparent, so too does their reliance on illusion. The narcissist constructs a persona that appears confident, self-assured, and even invulnerable, but this is a performance rather than a reality. Your absence disrupts the performance, leaving them without an audience. Without the reinforcement of others, the persona begins to fade, and the truth beneath it becomes impossible to ignore. They are left exposed, vulnerable to their own insecurities, and unable to sustain the image they worked so hard to project. This exposure is particularly stark in moments of isolation. The narcissist's fear of being alone stems from their dependence on others to validate their existence. When you disappear, you force them to confront the solitude they have long sought to avoid. In this isolation, their insecurities are magnified, and their inability to find fulfillment within themselves is laid bare. Their fragility becomes evident in their desperation to fill the void left by your absence, often through unhealthy means or relationships. The narcissist's reaction to exposure often reveals the depths of their emotional immaturity. Instead of reflecting on their behavior or seeking growth, they may resort to blame, denial, or further manipulation. These responses are attempts to protect their fragile ego, but they only serve to underscore their lack of self-awareness and resilience. The more they try to cover their vulnerability, the more apparent it becomes to those who are watching. Their efforts to maintain control often backfire, further unraveling the image they sought to protect. For those who have been under the narcissist's influence, this exposure can be both liberating and eye-opening. Seeing the fragility of the narcissist helps to break the illusion of their power and dominance. It reveals that their strength was never as real as it seemed, and that their control was rooted in your willingness to participate in their narrative. Recognizing this truth allows you to reclaim your autonomy and begin to heal from their influence. The exposure of their fragility is not just their downfall, but also your pathway to freedom. In the end, the exposure of the narcissist's fragility is a natural consequence of their reliance on manipulation and illusion. They construct their world on the unstable foundation of external validation, control, and dominance, all of which crumble in the face of genuine absence. While they may try to rebuild their facade, the cracks have already been revealed, and the truth is impossible to ignore. Their fragility, once hidden behind a mask of confidence, is laid bare, challenging the perception of strength they sought to uphold. When you disappear from the life of a narcissist, one of the most immediate and vivid reactions is the emergence of their anger. This anger is not born of righteous indignation or genuine loss, but is deeply rooted in their bruised ego and shattered sense of control. The narcissist thrives on dominance, and your withdrawal represents a direct challenge to their authority. This perceived affront ignites a fiery anger within them, one that is disproportionate and often misdirected. Their rage is not just an expression of hurt, but a desperate attempt to reassert the power they feel slipping through their fingers. The anger of a narcissist manifests as a whirlwind of accusations, blame, and attempts to demean. They are skilled at directing their fury outward, rarely allowing themselves to confront their own flaws or vulnerabilities. Your departure becomes, in their mind, an act of betrayal or disrespect, one that must be met with swift retaliation. They will often lash out verbally, using cutting remarks or exaggerated grievances to paint themselves as the victim. This anger is not constructive but destructive, designed to destabilize and draw you back into their sphere of influence. This rage also reveals their underlying fear. Beneath the outward anger lies a deep-seated terror of abandonment and irrelevance. The narcissist relies on the presence of others to validate their identity and affirm their worth. Your absence disrupts this validation, leaving them exposed to the emptiness they strive so hard to avoid. Their anger is, therefore, a defense mechanism, a way to mask the profound insecurity that your disappearance has unearthed. It is easier for them to be angry than to admit the pain of rejection or the fragility of their constructed persona. The emergence of their anger often takes on an obsessive quality. They cannot easily let go of the situation or move on as others might. Instead, they replay the perceived offense in their mind, allowing their anger to fester and grow. This obsessive focus keeps their emotions raw, and they may seek ways to punish or undermine you from a distance. They may spread falsehoods, attempt to damage your reputation, or manipulate mutual connections to regain some semblance of control. Their anger is not fleeting but sustained, driven by their inability to tolerate a loss of power. In their anger, narcissists often seek to project their own flaws onto you. They may accuse you of being ungrateful, disloyal, or selfish, all while failing to acknowledge the behaviors that led to your departure. This projection serves two purposes. It absolves them of responsibility and redirects the narrative to suit their needs. By making you the villain, they can maintain their sense of superiority and avoid the painful introspection that your absence demands. Their anger, therefore, becomes a shield against the truth, a way to deflect from their own shortcomings. The intensity of their anger often exposes the extent to which they depended on you for their emotional stability. While they may have presented themselves as self-sufficient and superior, your withdrawal reveals the reliance they placed on your presence. This dependency, once hidden beneath layers of dominance and control, becomes glaringly apparent in the wake of their rage. Their anger is not just about losing you, but about losing the part of themselves that was propped up by your involvement. It is a loss they are ill-equipped to process, leading to an escalation of their emotional outbursts. For those who have stepped away, the narcissist's anger can be both daunting and revealing. It serves as a reminder of the toxic dynamics that led to the separation in the first place. Their inability to handle rejection or loss without resorting to anger underscores the unhealthy nature of the relationship. While their fury may feel overwhelming, it is also an affirmation that your decision to leave was necessary. Their anger, though loud and intimidating, is ultimately powerless against your resolve to remove yourself from their influence. This anger, however, is not sustainable in the long term. While the narcissist may harbor resentment for years, their ability to act on it diminishes as time passes. The emergence of their anger is most intense in the immediate aftermath of your departure, fueled by the shock and disruption it causes. Over time, as they redirect their energy to new sources of validation, the intensity of their anger wanes. However, the scars left by their outbursts serve as a reminder of their fragility and the unhealthy dependency that drove their rage. The emergence of the narcissist's anger is a multifaceted reaction, one that reveals far more about their inner world than they would ever willingly admit. It is a mixture of fear, insecurity, and a desperate need for control, all disguised beneath a veneer of fury. While their anger may be directed outward, its roots lie within, a testament to the instability of their ego and the unsustainable nature of their dominance. For those who have endured it, the narcissist's anger is not just a challenge to navigate, but a window into the deeper dynamics at play in their lives. When a narcissist senses their control slipping away, their response is almost invariably marked by desperate attempts to regain power. This is not mere persistence, but a calculated, often relentless strategy aimed at reasserting their dominance over your life. Their need for control is central to their sense of self, and losing it feels like a personal attack. Thus, the narcissist will employ every tool in their arsenal, from charm to manipulation, to regain the upper hand. These attempts are not driven by love or genuine concern, but by the fear of losing their grip on the narrative they have constructed. Another method they frequently resort to is playing the victim. The narcissist may claim that your absence has caused them unbearable pain, framing themselves as the wounded party in the relationship. This strategy aims to elicit your sympathy and draw you back through guilt. They may exaggerate their struggles, fabricate crises, or even blame you for their hardships. By positioning themselves as a victim, they attempt to shift the focus away from their own shortcomings and place the responsibility for reconciliation squarely on your shoulders. Manipulation through mutual relationships is another powerful tool they wield. The narcissist may reach out to friends, family, or colleagues, spinning a narrative that paints them in a favorable light while subtly discrediting you. These efforts aim to isolate you, making you feel as though others are siding with them. They may even enlist these individuals as unwitting allies, using them to convey messages or apply pressure. This tactic not only reinforces their control, but also undermines your sense of autonomy and support. Fear and intimidation are also common tactics in their bid to regain power. If kindness and guilt fail, the narcissist may resort to threats, both overt and covert. They might threaten to harm your reputation, reveal private information, or disrupt your life in other ways. These threats are designed to instill fear, making you feel that re-engaging with them is the safer option. Their goal is not just to regain control, but to create an environment where you feel powerless to resist their influence. In some cases, the narcissist will attempt to rewrite history. They may downplay or deny their past behavior, reframing events in a way that absolves them of blame and casts you as unreasonable. This gaslighting tactic is intended to make you question your own memory and perception, leaving you vulnerable to their manipulation. By controlling the narrative, they seek to create doubt and confusion, making it easier for them to reassert their dominance. Another subtle but powerful tactic is the use of nostalgia. The narcissist may remind you of happier times, emphasizing the good moments in your relationship while conveniently ignoring the bad. They may recount shared experiences, play your favorite songs, or bring up cherished memories, all in an effort to evoke feelings of longing and attachment. This appeal to the past is not an acknowledgement of the relationship's value, but a strategic move to rekindle your emotional connection and weaken your resolve. Their attempts to regain power often extend into monitoring and surveillance. The narcissist may keep tabs on you through social media, mutual acquaintances, or even direct observation. They seek to gather information about your activities, relationships, and emotional state, using this knowledge to craft their next move. This intrusion is not just about control, but about maintaining a presence in your life, ensuring that you cannot fully escape their influence. Their obsessive need to monitor stems from their deep-seated fear of being forgotten or replaced. Feigning transformation is another tactic they employ. The narcissist may claim they have changed, citing therapy, self-reflection, or newfound insights as evidence of their growth. They may adopt new behaviors or language, temporarily aligning with your expectations to convince you of their sincerity. However, this transformation is often superficial, designed to win you back rather than address the root of their issues. Once they regain power, their behavior typically reverts to its previous patterns, revealing the insincerity of their claims. One of the most insidious methods they use is exploiting your vulnerabilities. The narcissist knows your fears, desires, and insecurities, and they will use this knowledge to manipulate you. They may offer solutions to your problems, promise to fulfill your unmet needs, or prey on your fears of loneliness or failure. By positioning themselves as indispensable, they seek to make you believe that re-engaging with them is in your best interest. This exploitation is not a sign of care, but a calculated move to tighten their grip on your life. Ultimately, their attempts to regain power reveal the depth of their dependence on control and external validation. While these efforts may appear diverse and even contradictory, they all serve the same purpose: to re-establish the dominance they feel entitled to. The narcissist's relentless pursuit of power is a testament to their fragility, a desperate attempt to mask the insecurity that lies beneath their facade. For those who see through their tactics, these attempts become not a source of fear, but a reminder of the freedom that lies beyond their grasp. When you choose to distance yourself from a narcissist, a peculiar transformation begins to unfold within them, a recognition of their own emptiness. This awareness, though often subtle and deeply suppressed, emerges as they lose the ability to extract the validation and control they once derived from you. For the narcissist, their sense of self is intricately tied to external affirmation, and without it, they are confronted with a void that they have spent a lifetime avoiding. This emptiness is not a sudden development, but a constant state masked by their outward displays of confidence, manipulation, and control. The narcissist's emptiness is rooted in their inability to find fulfillment from within. Their identity is constructed on fragile foundations: the opinions of others, their perceived power over relationships, and the superficial markers of success. When you remove yourself from their sphere of influence, the scaffolding that supports their identity begins to crumble. Left without someone to control or manipulate, they are forced to face the hollowness of their inner world. This confrontation with their own inadequacy is profoundly unsettling, yet it is a reality they cannot escape. One of the first manifestations of this emptiness is an overwhelming sense of loneliness. While the narcissist often surrounds themselves with admirers or enablers, these relationships are transactional, built on the narcissist's ability to extract attention rather than genuine connection. When someone like you, who may have played a pivotal role in their life, chooses to walk away, the void left behind cannot be easily filled. The narcissist may try to replace you with others, but these substitutes often fail to provide the depth of validation they crave, leaving them even more aware of their isolation. Their recognition of emptiness also brings with it a profound sense of vulnerability. For the narcissist, vulnerability is not an opportunity for growth or connection, but a threat to their carefully constructed facade. The absence of someone to dominate or validate leaves them exposed, unable to shield themselves from the reality of their inner desolation. This vulnerability often manifests as erratic behavior, as they oscillate between attempts to regain control and moments of despair over their inability to do so. Their desperation becomes a reflection of the emptiness they are trying to escape. In their search for relief from this emptiness, the narcissist may turn to external distractions. They may immerse themselves in work, pursue superficial relationships, or seek validation through material success. However, these efforts are merely temporary fixes, incapable of addressing the root of their emptiness. No matter how much they achieve or acquire, the void within them remains, a constant reminder of their inability to find true fulfillment. This cycle of pursuit and dissatisfaction only deepens their sense of emptiness over time. Another manifestation of their emptiness is a heightened sensitivity to criticism or rejection. Even the slightest perceived slight can send them into a spiral of self-doubt and rage. Without someone to provide the constant affirmation they crave, their self-esteem becomes even more fragile. This hypersensitivity further isolates them, as they push away those who might otherwise offer genuine support. In their quest to protect their ego, they create a self-imposed exile, which only serves to amplify their feelings of emptiness. The narcissist's recognition of their emptiness can also lead to moments of introspection, albeit fleeting. There may be brief instances where they confront the reality of their condition and acknowledge their need for change. However, these moments are often overshadowed by their fear of vulnerability and their unwillingness to relinquish control. Instead of embracing growth, they retreat into their familiar patterns of manipulation and denial, perpetuating the very emptiness they wish to escape. Their inability to engage in genuine self-reflection becomes a barrier to healing. As their emptiness becomes more apparent, the narcissist's interactions with others may take on a desperate quality. They may seek to re-establish contact with those who have distanced themselves, not out of love or repentance, but as a means of filling the void. Their overtures often come wrapped in false promises of change or exaggerated displays of affection. However, these gestures are not sustainable, as their underlying emptiness eventually resurfaces, eroding any trust or connection they might temporarily rebuild. Ultimately, the narcissist's recognition of their emptiness is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it is a necessary step towards self-awareness and growth, a confrontation with the truth of their condition. On the other hand, their unwillingness to embrace vulnerability and accountability often prevents them from taking the steps needed to address this emptiness. Instead, they remain trapped in a cycle of denial and dependence, seeking external validation to mask their internal void. This cycle perpetuates their suffering, leaving them unable to escape the emptiness that defines their existence.